Hello my lovelies and welcome to the channel. This week I am going to be making some cowboy candy. And what is cowboy candy, I hear you ask? Cowboy candy is like a sweet pickled jalapeno, and it is just amazing. It's a really good condiment to have if you have people in your family who maybe aren't so keen on heat in their food or spiciness, because you can make a dish that is quite plain and then you can just add in some cowboy candy to bring the heat level up to where you want it to be. We find it really good in loads of different things. You have to excuse the dog is whining in the background because he won't take his high heels off, so he was banished from the kitchen. So we are going to get started and make this. So I've pulled these jalapenos out of the deep freeze and they've been in there for a while, so it's good to get them out. We'll create a little bit of space, not enough, but you know, every little bit of space that's available in there gets used, so it's good to be able to rotate through things. So some of these are ones that we've grown. For those of you who have been following the channel for a while, you will know that we had a disaster of a year last year with some contaminated compost, or contaminated manure even. So our growing season wasn't as good as it could have been last year. So in this bowl we have jalapenos that we grew ourselves and harvested, and these are ones that I bought from my fruit and veg man, Andrew, who is at the market in Ramelton on a Thursday. He's very good if there's any boxes of things that you want to order. He's great at getting them in for you. So it's always good to make friends with your fruit and veg man. Now, you're probably wondering why I'm doing this frozen. Actually makes it easier to chop them up. And I'm only going to take the tops off them because I'm going to put them in the food processor. Stick my teeth back in to chop them up fairly finely. The way that we like this is, I would say it's more of a relish than a lot of the cowboy candies that you see made in America. It's just made with the sliced up jalapenos, but we find it more useful to have it finely chopped. It just goes, it mixes through dishes a lot better if you're wanting to add that spice or that hit of heat to something when you've had to make it quite plain. Now, word to the wise, wear some gloves. Really important, because you don't want to touch your face after you've been chopping chilies. It's not fun. You don't want to touch anywhere else either. And it's like, I wear contact lenses, and getting chili in your eye when you've got contact lenses on is no joke. I'm going to go ahead and start taking the tops off of these. Let's see where we're at now. I've got quite a heavy knife here, and it's just going through. I'm going to grab a bowl just to put the tops in. Now these aren't going to get wasted, these tops. Fun fact about chickens, they don't actually taste the heat in spicy things. Well, that's something that I've seen in quite a few places. So these chili tops will go to the chickens, and you know, that will feed them. Don't know if it'll give us spicy eggs or not, but we'll see. I'm just going to roughly chop these jalapenos so that the food processor's not having to work so hard. And you can take some of the seeds out of these, but I think it's quite nice to have the heat. Now, I'm not somebody, oh, that one's a bit tougher. I'm not someone who likes a lot of heat. I like a hum of heat, but not super fiery. Like my nose and my eyes just stream. But I love the flavour of chilies. Oh goodness! I love that fruitiness that you get from them. I think I'm going to let that one sit for a little while because that is solid. So it is. This is just a really nice way to have it. And you're probably going to go, oh my goodness, that's so much sugar. Yes, there is a lot of sugar in this. However, for the amount that you are having, you're not going to be eating that much sugar. I will come back to you when I've finished chopping a batch of these, because I really don't think you want us to sit and watch me chopping for the next 20 minutes. I've got some of these chilies chopped up and I'm going to pop them in the food processor. I don't want to put too much in because I don't want to overload it. These are still quite frozen, so we don't want to burn the motor out. And if you want to get rid of some of the seeds, that is absolutely okay. You might give some of these to the chickens just for some extra flavouring. Rightio. This is where it starts to get quite noisy. Have a look at this. Not quite there yet. A little bit more. Yeah, I'm going to call that good. There are some quite chunky bits and some smaller bits, which is quite nice. So I will grab a bowl and tip that lot out and get the next lot chopped up and just repeat the process until I am all finished. I've just finished blitzing up the final batch of chilies, and now it's time to weigh them out. It's quite important to weigh out how much you have, because that will dictate how much of the pickling liquid that you make. Now, I would always advise you to make extra, because it can be used for loads of other things. It is great in a marinade, it's great for making jerky. I haven't actually done this one yet, but I know a lot of people do this and they absolutely rave about it, and that is that they chop up pineapple and put it in the Cowboy Candy liquor, and then they pressure can that, and it is just meant to be one of the nicest things ever. It's like sweet and spicy and just all around deliciousness, so that is on my list to do. I know it's my ever-growing list, but I will eventually get around to doing it. So anyway, let's weigh this all out and see how much we have. Now, I've still got my gloves on because I really don't want to get any chili in my eyes. I'm shocking for rubbing my eyes, especially later on in the day. As I get tired, I end up rubbing my eyes a lot. The bowl here, might have to weigh this in a couple of batches. We'll just see how we get on. Try not to spill this all over the floor. I think we could have done with a slightly bigger bowl. Anyway, started, so I'll finish. So I have got 2.3 kilos of chopped chilies here. Now that we have this all weighed out, it's time to go and over to the stove and make the pickling liquid. Time to make the pickling liquor, or the brine, whatever you want to call it. So the first thing we are going to add in is 1.8 kilos of sugar. Now yes, this is a lot, but this is a triple batch of what I would normally make, or it's a triple batch of the recipe that I have up on the website. So that is why it is such a huge amount. Next thing we want to do is to measure out 750 mils of apple cider vinegar. Now this is the last of that huge batch I made 2 or 3 years ago, and it is just the nicest apple cider vinegar I've ever had, even if I do say so myself. We are definitely going to have to scrump some apples from somewhere and get another big batch made this year. Oh, just the smell of it, it's amazing. Let's see, where are we? Just fry that all in. It's a little bit over, but that's okay because we do like to have a lot of the leftover liquid. Next up, we are going to go in with a teaspoon of celery salt. This is a really good natural preservative, as well as adding flavour. You'll see a lot of products like bacon or some hams advertised now as nitrate free. Because nitrates don't agree with a lot of people. They're not actually very good for us, and a lot of the time when you get something that's been cured but it's nitrate free, they've been using the celery salt instead of the nitrates. We need to go in with 3 teaspoons of garlic. I like to be quite generous. There we go. That's that one done. And finally we want to go in with a teaspoon of turmeric. And I put this one in last because it does stain everything it touches. So we want to put this on the heat and give it a good stir. Don't want it on too high a heat. So we'll give it a good stir, and we want this sugar to be dissolved before we put the chilies in. It doesn't look very appealing at the moment. It is the sugar content along with the vinegar is what helps to preserve this. So yes, it is quite a sugar heavy recipe, but like I said before, the amount that you're actually going to be having is minimal unless you're eating it by the spoonful, which I have seen people do before. May or may not have seen them do that in this house, but you know, it's something that we enjoy, and it might be something that you enjoy too, especially if you grow chilies. Now you could use different types of chilies, and we just find that the jalapenos are what we prefer, and they're a good all-rounder. They're not too fiery, they just work for us. I know some people like the hotter the better, but I just can't tolerate too much heat. When I grew up, I didn't really get much, if any, spicy foods, so I kind of have to build my tolerance up to it. If I haven't had anything really fiery for a long time, I need to work my way up to it. But I do always enjoy it when I have it. It's almost quite addictive. I know when I was pregnant with Thomas, my youngest, spicy food was what I craved, which is ridiculous because I could have taken out Shares and Gaviscon, to be quite honest. I should have, because with each pregnancy you know, I was guzzling that by the gallon. But that's what I craved, and that's something I never thought I would have a craving for, but chilli was it. I'll bring you in and I'll show you what this looks like. So this is what it looks like at the minute. The sugar's not fully dissolved right now. You can see some of that garlic powder sort of clumped together, but that will break up as it heats up. Now it is really, really important that you use a large enough pan. We have made the mistake on a couple of occasions when we've made Cowboy Candy. Like, yeah, it'll fit. And you go to put the chilies in and you're like, we're gonna need a bigger pan. So start off with a bigger pan than you think you'll need, because it's just a pain in the backside having to start tipping things into different pans. And it just gives you enough space to work and not be having things fall out over the side. So this brine or pickling liquor has been simmering for a few minutes now. So I'm going to go ahead and add the chilies in. I'll just grab a scraper so don't miss any. Whoa, that is a lot of chili. Not quite sure, but I think this may be one of our biggest batches to date. I could be wrong. Okay, we'll give that a wee stir. And the chilies are only going to be in for a couple of minutes really. It's just so that they get ever so slightly cooked. We are going to water bath this. So they will cook further. You're not going to get water bathed for very long. And that is just to make sure that the jars do seal properly. Not everybody does that step, but it's that little extra step to make sure that everything is preserved properly. I'm going to leave that just to simmer for a couple of minutes now, and then we'll come back and lift the chilies out into the bowl. The chilies have been on the hob for 3 or 4 minutes now, so I'm going to go ahead and remove them with this slotted spoon scoop doohickey thing. It's really useful for jobs like this because it will allow the liquid to come out. We want to keep that liquid in the pan for now. We're going to allow it to reduce down a bit so it goes nice and syrupy, but it's been flavoured with the chilies, so you've got that heat and fruitiness from them in there. You don't have to get all of it out, but it does help to get the majority of it out. And I have got some jars heating up in the oven, so they're sterilised, and the chilli will get put into that. And once the brine or the pickling liquor has reduced down, that will get poured over the top, and then we will put the lids on and start water bathing. Now that I've got the chilies out of the brine, I'm going to turn the heat up and let that bubble down for 5 minutes so that that will thicken up. I've got I've got the jars out of the oven. They have been in for 10 minutes and they're nice and hot, so it is time to load up jars. Now these are, some of them are old salsa jars. Some of them are ones that I've bought from Allpack. That's where I tend to get my glass jars from when I'm buying them here in Ireland. They're companies in the UK, Jars and Bottles and Wares of Knutsford. I think they're meant to be very good ones for the UK. The ones that I've bought, they are slightly larger capacity than the salsa jars that you get when you buy salsa in the shops, but they are very good. They're a great size for holding stuff like Cowboy Candy. They're not too big, they're not too small, just right. Anyway, I will stop wittering on and start loading these jars up. And we just want to make sure that they're full, but there's some space for the liquid to go in. Yes, Thomas?
I'm going to get another spoon.
Right, okay. The snack monster has entered.
No, I'm not!
Now I am hoping that I have got enough jars here. Please, please have enough jars. Now I was thinking on it, I might give steam canning a go this time, just because it requires a lot less water and just doesn't take as long. I'm just quite aware of the fact that I need to get dinner happening. I have to get Isla out to fiddle lessons.
Mom, I'm going to get 3 waffles.
This is just so colourful and beautiful. There was some little mini orange peppers that my mother-in-law had sent over before they went away. They weren't going to get them used up, so they sent them over. I've chopped them up too and put them in. And you don't have to have a lot of like red or orange peppers in there, or chilies for that matter. Just those flecks in there, they just make it so vibrant and beautiful. Whoa. Now I've still got the brine there bubbling away, that's doing its thing. That's absolutely fine. Part of the reason for heating the jars up is to avoid thermal shock, because we don't want to go to all this work and then have our jars crack and everything be wasted, because what's the point in doing that? You know, it takes a lot of work to do stuff like this, and especially if you've grown things yourself, you don't want to see them go to waste. You want to make the most of them. I think we're going to be alright for jars. Thank goodness for that. Better to kind of overestimate how many jars you need, just because, you know, it's a whole hassle. So always put on more than you think you might need. I'm going to take this brine off the hob and start pouring it into the jars now. Okay, let's get this poured on. This is certainly one very good way to clear your sinuses. Just going to use a skewer to make sure that there's no air bubbles in there. Okay, I'm going to pop some lids on these and grab the canner, and we will steam can these. And I'm also going to put the leftover liquid in a jug just to cool down, and then I'll pour that into a jar, and that can live in the fridge quite happily for the next wee while until I have a use for it, be it a marinade or doing that pineapple, which I am going to get round to doing. Before I put the lids on, I'm going to just wipe the rims of the jars with white vinegar, and the reason for this is it cleans off any debris and it ensures that there's going to be a proper seal. You know, you don't want any grease or anything that's going to prevent it from sealing properly, so that's why we just wipe around the jars. It's nothing major, just a wee wipe round, gives you a chance to inspect it. There we are, and we'll pop these lids on. I'll tighten these up just before it goes in the canner. So for those of you in America, these are called lug lids. We use them quite often over here. I know there is a school of thought that you have to use the two-part lids and it's not safe to reuse jar lids. These ones here are brand new, but you can, as long as they're not damaged and the rubber seal in there is intact, you can reuse them. So it's absolutely fine to reuse jars that have come from the supermarket with stuff in it. You know, you don't have to go out and specifically buy jars for canning. You're not going to die, nothing's going to go wrong, the world is not going to end. You can recycle jars. Anyway, I'm going to get this canner out and we'll put these in and we're going to steam can it for 10 minutes. Got the canner out and I have turned the gas on and warming the water up. I've also put some water from the kettle in here because we've got warm jars, so we want warm water. So just getting rid of the thermal shock. I'm going to lift these in. These aren't essential, but jar lifters do make a huge difference, especially when it's time to lift stuff out. If you're water bath canning, then they are very, very important. I'm hoping that these are all going to fit in here. If not, I can get a tray and put them on another level. It's important when you put the jars in here that they aren't touching. You don't want them to rattle off one another. And you don't want them rattling off the side. So move you that way. I think we're going to get all 8 jars in here, which just makes life a little bit easier. Okay, I am going to pop the lid on. Oh, actually I will say about these are the WEC jar lifters. They have the individual prongs that go around the outside as opposed to maybe the Kilner ones or the Bull ones. That is a solid metal semicircle. For these wider jars that I use, they don't fit round, and I have had them drop out before, so if you're using wider jars like I am, the WEC jar lifters are really, really good. So now that I've got the lid on, what we're going to do is we're going to wait for this to pop up and the steam to come out. And the beauty of the steam canning is it only takes about 10 minutes once it gets going. You don't have to put the weight on, because this is high acid, you don't need to pressure can it. So we're just going to let that vent steam for 10 minutes and then take it off the heat and allow it to depressurize, and then we'll lift the jars out. Now we are canning. This little valve here has popped up, which lets me know that the canner is completely sealed. While not pressurized, it kind of is. We're going to steam for 10 minutes out of this vent, and then we'll come back and turn the heat off and wait for this valve to go down before we take the lid off. So the canner's had its 10 minutes of steam canning. Sorry, I can't speak properly today. And this wee valve has popped down. I have my protective gloves on. Learn by my mistakes. Steam burns are not fun at all. We're going to crack this open a little bit. Lift the lid away from ourselves. And then lift the jars out. Get this one in the middle first. Now I forgot to say, I added a little bit of vinegar even, to the water in here. Just stop, it's like a white scale that comes on the jar sometimes, or especially if you're doing like meat dishes, some of the grease, if there's any siphoning that happens, it just helps to prevent that from sticking to the jars. I don't think it's really as necessary with the steam canning, but certainly if you're pressure canning, it is quite important to do that. That's a step that I quite often forget. So there we have 8 jars of Cowboy Candy. These are going to stay on the chopping board for 24 hours just to ensure that they seal. Now it is quite important to bring them out onto either a surface with a tea towel or a wooden chopping board, just to help the heat dissipate and again to avoid that thermal shock. Once the 24 hours is up, I will take these and put them in my storage area, and I'll be able to grab one down off the shelf every time I need to bring a new one into the kitchen.
So here's an example of how we like to use the Cowboy Candy. I've used it as a topping for nachos, but you can quite easily add it into some bolognese with some kidney beans to really spice it up. There are just so many possibilities in the way that you can use Cowboy Candy. I want to thank you so much for tuning in with and joining me this week. Don't forget to like this video and hit that subscribe button, and I will see you again soon. Take care, my lovely.